Hi, welcome. On this video, you're going to see me begin the process of having Tiny pick up objects for her owner as part of the service dog training process. Now here, I have several objects that I'm going to be using as part of the process. On today's video, where I'm just beginning this task-related specific exercise I want Tiny to perform on command, I'm going to start off with an easier type of an object. And what I'm going to be using here is just a piece of tubing, okay, that I'm going to have her take into her mouth and hold until I get her to release it. So this is, again, the focus is still on relationship, on issue about making sure I'm fading in at the right level so that she's going to do certain things in a reliable, consistent way on command, no matter where I'm at. So regardless of either within the home environment or I'm out in a different location, perhaps a department store or wherever, and I need her to pick up something from the ground, she's going to be doing it regardless of the distractions that are happening around her. Okay, so again, keeping that in mind and still continuing to work in terms of the specific interactions that are going to fade me in. It's all about understanding the type of glue, I call it relational glue, that holds everything together. Okay, this is why sometimes you get service dogs that will do okay inside the home environment, but if you take them out into a different, more distracting area, not so much. Okay, they have a lot more difficulty staying on task. So the goal here is really to make sure that we're connecting dots the right way. So therefore, again, as part of the process, the first couple phases is more focused on relationship. Okay, on making sure that I'm fading in the right way, and that's transferring over to the dog owner, to Tiny's owner. And so here in this exercise, again, this is just the starting point of this. But again, I'm still focused on setting up, making sure that the focus is on me. So I'm going to bring Tiny out here in a moment. What you're going to see as I'm doing this is you're going to see me walking around in a bit of a circle. I'm continuing to stop Tiny along the way to really emphasize paying attention to me. And then as I get closer to this area, you're going to see me begin to introduce the object, okay, on command, and get her to get it. I just use it doesn't matter what command you use, okay? What matters is about how you're connecting the dot, okay, how you're introducing the object. So I will be asserting some influence, okay, through it. So I'm going to be, putting it against her mouth and kind of forcing it into her mouth. But when I force it into her mouth, okay, even though I'm asserting influence, it's not meant to be overly forceful, okay? I'm just asserting influence for her to accept it. And then the focal point, again, this is where you get this issue about using a motivator, okay, to motivate her to do it, because now using a motivator takes on different meaning, okay, because again, the relationship side of things is lining up properly. So when I'm putting it in her mouth, when she starts to accept it, okay, at certain points, I'm going to be praising and rewarding her. But one of the tricks here, again, this is the thing where if you're doing this type of thing, it's hard for people sometimes because if you're asserting influence onto a dog at a certain level, then the kind of duality of that switching over to saying, good girl, it's hard sometimes for us to switch back and forth that way. So just, if you're doing this type of exercise, remember you want to really be enthusiastic. You want to kind of key up on better moments, it's called jackpotting. So when she's accepting this better, then I'm going to get more enthusiastic at certain times to motivate her to accept it. But again, I still want to assert influence because I want to make sure I tie it in that way so that it's about control. Okay, so, but again, both things are working together, okay, to get the consistency and reliability that you want. And so when I'm doing this, again, this is just doing this, you're not going to overextend this type of exercise. When I'm doing this type of exercise, it's just done in almost like called circuit training type of thing, where it's just like moments, and then once you have some success, just from keeping it within a certain period of time, it's just a certain level of acceptance, that's great, okay? Then I'm going to kind of finish the exercise and just increase it slowly. This is where you get into using more, what would be considered more difficult objects, with metal. Cloth objects, this would be considered to be easier, okay? So this is one of the things that I'm going to be using initially to help to kind of increase expectations. And then we get into more difficult things. I mean, like a larger object that would be more difficult for her to take a hold of, okay? She would be less willing. I'd have to put too much influence, okay? So, and then we get into other things even with something like this with metal, okay? A flat object where she has to really work to pick it up. It's going to be more difficult. But again, it's all starting off easy, and then getting her highly motivated, and then increasing expectations over time. Okay, so this is phase 2. I'm starting to work on this exercise. But again, phase 2, I'm still really emphasizing in terms of these specific interactions to make sure that I'm fading in. Okay, so still more focused on the relationship side of things. Okay, so I'm just starting this. I've already done the assist to stand exercise. We're already well into that. She's doing really well. And so we're going to start to introduce this as another task that we want her to do for her owner. And then we just keep increasing from there. So again, I'm going to bring her out. You're going to see me doing this. And again, when you start to do this type of exercise, again, when I do it, you'll see me bring her up here. And I want really good type of solid, position, okay? But again, here's the thing. If you're starting to do something like this and there's a little bit more, say, putting the dog under a little bit more expectation influence, you may loosen up, okay? The expectation may loosen up a little bit in terms of position, in terms of exactly in a sitting position, okay? I may allow her to stand at certain times to help to motivate her. Because here's the thing, if you're introducing something like this, and then your expectation is like, I'm going to have that dog into a sit, I'm really going to get really kind of rigid in terms of expectation that way. And what that does is it really does increase the level of influence onto a dog, because you're trying to get them to do something else that is an added type of under influence, more influence, and that can really be more challenging, okay, more frustrating. So when you do something like this, you can kind of let that slide a little bit, okay? She gets up, stands up a little bit, moves around a little bit as I'm, introducing the object. That's always the best way to do it. And then, once that gets going a little bit, then get her into, I want a really good sit. And then, because here's the thing, is I want her to actually go from a sit to pick the object up, back into a sit, and then very intentionally release the object on command. Okay, so it's just how you tie it in. You want really solid positions at the end of training, okay, during the process. So everything ties together, but again, you have to kind of loosen up expectations to help to move things along. Okay, so just understand you're doing this. There's little variances that you're doing to help to speed things along, make it a little easier. It's no different if a dog is really highly motivated, okay, to go after a ball or an object or fetch, and you're faded out and it's all about control, and you're just kind of like a toll booth in you. If you suddenly take this methodology and bring it online and it's too much influence going on, it throws them off. Okay, they'll just totally reject the ball altogether. You're like, but that shows you, okay, how they perceive the relationship side of things between you and the object. So therefore, you want to kind of do it in just you want to bring it together in a very kind of loose way, and then you want to increase expectations to certain positions. Okay, so there's always a way to do things that's going to make things go easier and not be as frustrating, but that comes to experience, okay, when you do this type of thing. So, but like anything, at the end, you want solid positions, okay? So again, bring Tanya out. I want to go through this and explain it all first so that when I'm moving around, doing certain things, people have a general idea as to what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, okay? And this is where I start to get into, okay, motivating, reward, because a lot of times people see my videos and they tend to look at things and say, well, Dale doesn't reward dogs. Well, actually, I'm following a specific sequence, okay? I'm focusing on making sure the relationship side of things is fixed first, because then a motivator takes on different meanings, but control. And so if you get into that type of thing, this is where it can be problematic. You want to make sure you're faded in first to get the relationship side of things right. Then we can get into what's called positive reward based, but people take that out of context, okay? I'm going to see me motivate Tiny now using that only because we're in a pretty good place, okay? So again, understand there's always about the order of things, okay? Getting the order of things right first. Otherwise, things can go sideways. This is where you can get dogs, service dogs, that will not perform the way that you think that they will because you haven't fixed the relationship. It's still an open door to control, and then you want the dog to do something, they become overly distracted. And so it's really important you have to fix the relationship. Focus on that first. Do this interaction-based approach, and then this becomes more easy, okay? It ties in properly, and it goes just fine. So every time you see me introducing the object, okay, so as I bring her out here, okay, I still have her on the choke chain with pressure collar, call it whatever you want, to help me assert more control and leverage. But here's the thing, okay? This is where I talk about having two collars on the dog, and in terms of keeping things leveled out to motivate a dog more, okay? When I get close to doing or start to transition into doing something different, such as an objects exercise, I'll move over to the flat collar, okay, for that. Eventually I'll move over more to the flat collar because I don't want that type of influence on the dog, okay? I want to kind of, you know, allow the dog a little bit more freedom, and it's going to loosen up a little bit. But for this part right here, I will use the pressure collar, you know, transitioning into this exercise. So it's always good to kind of get the foundation going, keep working on it, keep it really good integrity this way. And there, kind of picture that as its own separate exercise. I'm going to do it here in a minute. But right here, I'm kind of moving around it. So right now, I'm emphasizing the relationship side of things here right now. I want to focus on me. Now here in a second, I'm going to move into putting her on a different collar. So right here, this is where I'll switch over to the flat collar. I'll still get her into a sit. I'll move her a little bit closer. She wants to check those objects out a little bit. I'm tapping her a little bit away from it. Because what I'm saying by doing this, I say, hey, through me, okay? I don't want her independently assessing anything right now. I want her to be focused on me, because I'm going to introduce the object. Get it? Good girl, good girl, good girl, good girl, out, good girl. Getting really good. Now, to see me doing it, like I said, what I'm doing here, I'm going to go back to the pressure collar again. Move around because again, I'm using reward motivation, and I'll move back to the pressure collar because I don't want her to think that, okay, I'm gaining some control here. I'm going to go back to just asserting these interactions again. I'll make a trip around. So there's certain ways to transition a little better here to make sure this ties in. This is what I'm doing here. Same thing. Do it again. She did really well. And notice I'm not doing it, the expectation isn't on the floor yet, okay? This is just in front. But that's what's called shaping, okay? She'll start to be motivated to want to reach for it more with her head. That's when I start to lower it down more and more towards the floor, okay? Yeah, good girl, good girl, good girl, good girl, out, good girl. And so this is where, again, I'm holding it in her mouth. I'm holding it in her mouth a little longer. And she's trying to, kick it out of her mouth, so to speak. She wants to kind of release it. But I keep it in there while I'm praising her. And kind of what you're doing is kind of fooling her into keeping it in her mouth longer. She'll start to accept it more and more as I do this. But, so So do it again. Back to the flat collar. Same object. Good girl, good girl, good girl. Good girl, good girl, good girl. Out, good girl. Now you notice she dropped it there, she released her mouth, it got by me, hit the floor. When that happens, not a big deal. Don't make just, you know, it's like a neutral type of thing. It's just like, okay, I'm not putting anything into that moment. I'm just pretending it didn't even happen, right? So, because everything's focused on just getting reward now for when it's in her mouth. Okay, so she'll establish that. She'll say, okay, I want some more of that. How does that happen? Well, whether I'm holding it in her mouth or she's holding it in her mouth on her own, she starts to establish, okay? She starts to make sense of the fact that, okay, she gets praise when it stays in her mouth. If it leaves her mouth for whatever reason, she gets nothing, okay? She doesn't get praise. She doesn't get scolded either, okay? She just doesn't get it. Good girl, 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 good girl. This time, a little less accepting. She's like, well, because here's the thing. What happens here is you start to, sometimes what will happen, you do it 2 or 3 times in a row. We'll do it one more time to kind of end on a good note. What happens is dogs start to get it. They're like, okay, Dale's like controlling this. Typically, they don't get a sense that, hey, I want to do it. I want to have control of it. And they start to reject it a little bit. Don't worry about that. That's normal, because she starts to understand, hey, you know, so if you get a little bit of rejection, just, you know, put it back in their mouth, or stop, you know, get somewhat of a good moment, reward a little bit, come back and then do it again. Good girl, good girl, good